Plissken? Plissken, what are you doing?
Playing with myself. I'm going in.
Manhattan didn't explode. It withered. The skyline is a cage, Air Force One is down, and the only hope is a convict with 24 hours and zero faith in heroes. But the real chaos isn't just on the screen. It's in the scraps of production magic, near misses, and whispered set legends that shaped every shadow. From model cities repainted into other futures to stunts that almost went terminal, these are the 20 strange, overlooked truths hiding beneath Escape from New York. Fact 1. 2 dystopias, 1 city. That ruined Manhattan you're staring at. Parts of it lived a second life. After Escape from New York wrapped, chunks of the miniature skyline were salvaged, repainted, and relit to become neon-drenched Los Angeles in Blade Runner. Same bones, different future. It's pure analog wizardry. Kit-bashed buildings, reflective tape, forced perspective, and camera moves selling impossible scale without computer graphics. Study the frames and the shared DNA peeks through. Tiered rooftops, layered alleys, and industrial clutter that feels handmade because it was. What looks like 2 massive productions overlaps on a workbench, proving how creativity stretches a budget. And here's the kicker. The reuse doesn't cheapen either film, it binds them. 1 model, 2 visions, grimy punk dystopia and neon noir, linked by craftsmen who knew how to make the future from cardboard, glue, and light. Fact 2. Before Titanic, he painted the apocalypse. Before commanding billion-dollar epics, James Cameron was the quiet force in the paint room. On Escape from New York, he cranked out matte paintings, tuned miniatures, and finessed low-tech CG illusions with black light and reflective tape. No fancy computers, just airbrush grit, kit-bash skylines, and problem-solving under brutal night schedules. That hands-on grind taught him scale, light, and how to cheat depth, so a shoebox city reads like Manhattan at midnight. You can feel the DNA of future Cameron. Obsessive textures, believable machinery, and shots that sell scope without shouting. The lesson sticks. Ambition doesn't wait for budget. It hacks the tools you have. Today's spectacle started in a corner with glue, glass, and sweat. And the next revelation, it wasn't rendered at all. It was staged where no one would guess. Fact 3. The computer city that wasn't. Those green wireframe skylines on Snake's glider look like early 80s CGI, right? Not a bite. The team built a miniature Manhattan, lined the edges with retro reflective tape, then shot it under black light so the tape glowed like vector graphics. A simple camera move over the model became computer motion. The lens did the math. They even masked surfaces so only the edges popped, selling the idea of a digital map scanning a dead city. No render farm, no terminals, just tape, paint, and timing. The trick works because the human eye loves straight lines, sliding in perspective. Our brains accept it as tech. That lo-fi illusion set the film's entire mood. Analog menace pretending to be digital power. And if that feels crafty, the next reveal was even scrappier. Captured not on a soundstage, but somewhere far tighter. Fact 4. The garage shot that saved the ending. Carpenter wrapped principal photography and noticed a hole. Maggie dies, but we never see the aftermath. No money, no set, no time. So he did the unthinkable, turned his own garage into a grave. Adrienne Barbeau lay motionless on cold concrete. Work lights stood in for street lamps. A tight lens, low angle, harsh spill, and a slow, deliberate drift across the pavement sold the moment as the Silver Cup Bridge. In minutes, the film gained the closure its story demanded. It's a perfect lesson in stakes over spectacle. Audiences don't need scale. They need truth. The cut lands because it honors consequence, not coverage. Indie DNA inside a studio release. And here's the tease. If a crucial death could be locked in a garage, imagine the next gamble. One involving a spiked bat, a wrestler, and a very real risk. Fact 5. The spiked bat showdown that was too real. That gladiator fight wasn't make-believe. John Carpenter hired fearsome pro wrestler Ox Baker to brawl with Kurt Russell, and the bat's snake swings wasn't a rubber prop. It had a real spike. To survive the hit, Baker wore a thin chest plate hidden under his costume, while the stunt team mapped exact marks, stance, breath, swing arc, mark and where the spike must land. One slip and the metal could punch through. Russell drilled the motion until muscle memory took over. The camera sold the rest with tight framing, a brutal sound cue, and a reactive jolt from Baker. The pain you read in his body language isn't CGI, just physics and nerves. It's the film's ethos in one beat. Low budget, high danger, maximum credibility. And if that rattled the set, the next disaster rattled an entire city, and the local press bought it. Fact 6. The crash that fooled a city. Production hauled a scrap airliner into downtown St. Louis, scattered twisted metal, pumped smoke, and lit it like catastrophe. By sunrise, word spread. A passenger jet had gone down in the middle of the city. Curious crowds formed. Some locals panicked. A few outlets even treated the staged wreckage as breaking news before the truth settled in. This was escape from New York, manufacturing chaos for the camera. St. Louis doubled perfectly for a ruined Manhattan. Fire-scarred blocks, empty corridors, and municipal support that let the crew turn streets into a war zone overnight and back by morning. It's movie alchemy, illusion large enough to bend reality for a day. And it underscores a bigger twist. Most of New York in the film isn't New York at all, which raises a sharper question. Who almost wore the eye patch instead of Kurt Russell? Fact 7. The role they tried to take from Kurt. Studios didn't picture Kurt Russell as a one-eyed anti-hero. They pictured the wholesome Disney alum. Execs floated safer names. Think Chuck Norris's martial aura or Tommy Lee Jones's granite stare. John Carpenter pushed back hard. Snake needed coiled quiet, not volume. Contempt you feel, not speeches. Russell chased that vibe. The laconic walk, the tired half smirk, the voice pitched low like gravel after midnight. He trained with the eye patch, refined the economy of movement, and protected the character from cheap swagger. When cameras rolled, the gamble read instantly. This wasn't a quip machine. It was a man who'd seen too much and cared too little. Overnight, Russell detonated his Disney image and minted an archetype, the reluctant, lethal outsider. And he didn't just win the part, he shaped it, which is why he also killed one infamous final insult gag before it ever hit film. Fact 8. The cigarette that never hit the president. One infamous beat almost turned Snake into a cartoon. In an early draft, after completing the mission, Snake coolly flicks his cigarette straight at the president's face. A mic drop insult you can practically hear. Kurt Russell shut it down. He argued Snake isn't a showboat. He's a burned-out professional who wastes nothing, including gestures. Loud disrespect would shrink the character. What sells Snake is the silence, the measured stare, the unhurried walk, the refusal to explain himself. Carpenter listened. The gag vanished, and the mystique stayed sharp. It's a masterclass in subtraction. Cut the cheap pop, and the legend gets bigger. The ending plays colder, cleaner, meaner, and you feel the contempt without a single extra move. Fewer fireworks, more aftermath. And speaking of big swings that never actually happened, the film's most jaw-dropping image only existed on a poster, nowhere on screen. Fact 9. The statue's head that never fell. You remember the poster? Chaos on Broadway. Snake sprinting as the severed head of the Statue of Liberty lies in the street. Iconic. Also, a total fake-out. That image was marketing, designed to telegraph apocalypse in a single frame, but the shot never appears in the movie. Inside the film, Lady Liberty is only an establishing symbol, not a demolished landmark. The bait worked. Audiences walked in expecting a mega-destruction spectacle, and instead got a lean, nocturnal thriller built from smoke, miniatures, and nerve. The poster's afterlife was wild too. Decades later, Cloverfield finally delivered what the EFNY one-sheet promised. Lady Liberty's head tumbling through Manhattan like a warning bell. Consider it cinematic karma, a promise made by an illustrator, paid off by another filmmaker. And it proves how a single image can rewrite your memory of a film you love forever after. Fact 10. The scream queen you hear, not see. That icy voice laying out the rules of prison Manhattan? It's Jamie Lee Curtis, uncredited, off-screen, and perfect. Carpenter borrowed the clean, clinical cadence of his Halloween star to sell a whole dystopia in seconds. New York sealed, bridges mined, mercy suspended. No exposition dump, no faces, just an audio decree that feels like law. It primes your nerves before Snake even steps into frame, and it links Carpenter's universes through sound instead of cameos. Curtis records, disappears, and the movie's tone hardens around her echo. That's the trick. Voice as world building. Authority without spectacle. Listen again, and you'll notice how the mix lets her words scenes sit like a cold front, then gives way to synth and searchlights. One ghostly line and the island becomes a sentence. And if that opener is minimalist, the film once tried the opposite, a full-blown heist you barely got to see. Fact 11. The heist you were never meant to see. Escape from New York originally opened with Snake mid-crime, a frantic bank job, alarms howling, a botched subway escape, and a capture that branded him infamous before we knew him. It was big, loud, and expensive. Sets, extras, gunfire, the works. And then test screenings killed it. The sequence flattened momentum and over-explained a character who works best as a rumor in an eye patch. Carpenter made the cold call, cut the whole thing. Suddenly, Snake enters as a myth, inked, shackled, unnamed sins trailing behind him like smoke. The movie gets faster, leaner, meaner. The deleted opener later surfaced on home releases, a fascinating what-if that proves subtraction can be a superpower. Mystery sells better than biography. Besides, the film had a richer mood to build, one powered by darkness, empty streets, and a crew that practically lived on the other side of midnight. Fact 12. A movie that only woke after dark. The film didn't just look nocturnal, it lived nocturnal. For weeks in St. Louis, call time was sunset and rap was sunrise. Streets were locked down at 6 p.m., dressed with burnt-out cars, blown plaster, smoke, and junked signage. The crew worked in damp chill, an artificial fog, timing shots between drifting clouds of haze so the black sky stayed bottomless. At dawn, city crews rolled in with bulldozers to clear the wreckage and reopen traffic like nothing happened. That rhythm warped everyone's body clock. Lunches at midnight, mornings at 4 p.m., and eyes that stung from glycerin smoke. The upside, consistency. Nights gave Carpenter total control of light, every cone, glint, and silhouette placed like chess. The result is a coherent world that feels sealed off from reality. And just above that world, something very real thundered in. Actual military helicopters. Fact 13. Real helicopters. Real heat. Those menacing rotor beats aren't library effects. They're the thump of actual National Guard helicopters flying low over St. Louis. The production secured military birds and crews, which meant real downwash, real searchlights, and real pressure on timing. Street debris had to be weighted so it wouldn't blast into frame. Mics were wrapped and sandbagged. Eye lines were rehearsed to match flight paths, slicing through corridors of smoke. The payoff is tactile. Blades strobe the haze, light rips across metal, and the sound hits your ribs before the shot lands. It also lit a fuse for John Carpenter. After living beneath that hardware night after night, he caught the bug, learned the ropes, and eventually earned his wings. Fitting. Really, Escape from New York didn't just fake a police state, it borrowed its air. Next up, a legend who delivered steel while hiding pain. Fact 14. Lee Van Cleef. Iron Will on a bad knee. Lee Van Cleef brought steel to Houck, even when his body wouldn't cooperate. He'd recently had knee surgery, hated the choppers, and was working brutal night shoots that punished joints. Cold streets, long stands, sharp pivots for authority takes. Wardrobe hid a supportive brace. Blocking trimmed steps, camera framing favored upper body command. Squared shoulders, daggered glances, clipped orders that cut like wire. Watch how he turns. Minimal radius, maximum authority. It's economy born of pain and craft. The stoic edge you read isn't just acting. It's management of discomfort in real time, channeled into character. That restraint makes Hawk the perfect counterweight to Snake's feral cool. Institutional power versus outlaw entropy. Van Cleef doesn't chase swagger. He radiates jurisdiction. And in a movie obsessed with masks, his is the most human. Discipline over strain. Next, a president with an unexpected, very British ghost story. Fact 15. The president with a secret British backstory. Donald Pleasance didn't just read lines. He invented a hidden history. To justify his crisp accent and frosty poise, he privately imagined an America that had buckled and fallen under renewed British influence, leaving a London-groomed figure installed as a president. None of this is stated on screen, but it leaks into every beat. The clipped diction, the courtly gestures under stress, the way authority feels borrowed rather than earned. It reframes his captivity to less patriotic rallying, more damaged statecraft trying to survive a nightmare island. That inner fiction adds a weird, unsettling flavor, a leader who looks official yet somehow foreign to his own crisis. Its aftermath audiences feel without noticing, sharpening the film's satire about power dressed up as order. And right after that aristocratic chill, the movie sneaks in a real brush with the White House. Through bloodline design, not politics. Fact 16. The cafe stranger who wasn't. Blink and you'll miss it. The woman Snake meets in the Chock-full-o'-nuts cafe wasn't a random extra. It was Season Hubley, Kurt Russell's then-wife. The cameo lands like a static charge. Snake, the ultimate loner, pauses long enough for a human connection that feels off-limits in a city built to erase them. That extra textual layer, real partners sharing a hopeless beat, adds odd tenderness to a film made of steel and smoke. It also deepens Snake's mystique. Even when intimacy brushes past, the island swallows it whole. Production-wise, it's a classic Carpenter move. Use the people you trust to nail a moment that doesn't overstay. Watch the body language. Cautious, curious, gone. No speechifying, just a ghost of warmth before the night clamps down again. And that brush with reality sets up the next one. A face tied to the White House by blood, not election. Fact 17. A Secret Service cameo with presidential DNA. Look closely at the Air Force One sequence and you'll spot an unexpected lineage. The young Secret Service agent is Stephen Ford, son of U.S. President Gerald Ford. No stunt casting announcement, no wink to camera, just real presidential blood woven into a fictional crisis. The meta-echo is delicious. In a film about power stranded behind enemy lines, one of the protectors actually grew up inside the White House bubble. It adds a faint documentary vibration to those frantic frames, clipped commands, flashing lights, a plane spiraling toward a city that's already a prison. The cameo is brief, but once you know it, you can't unsee it. The stakes feel weirder, closer, more plausible. It's another reminder that Escape from New York blurs fantasy with texture stolen from real life. And speaking of origins blending with myth, the story itself began years earlier, too bleak for Hollywood to touch. Fact 18. The script Hollywood called too dark. John Carpenter wrote Escape from New York back in 1974, long before Snake slouched onto a poster. Studios glanced at his America-turned prison and balked. Too bleak, too violent, too cynical about authority. The industry still wanted clean-cut heroes, not a burned-out outlaw navigating a country that locked its own heart in a cage. Carpenter shelved it, made Halloween, and suddenly the suits took his phone calls. With new clout and a modest budget, the unfilmable script rolled cameras and proved audiences were ready for a harsher future. That long rejection shaped the final movie. Leaner writing, sharper stakes, and a world that feels lived in rather than explained. It's a case study in timing. The same idea, shown later, lands like prophecy. And when production finally began, the biggest twist wasn't in the pages at all. It was where New York actually got built. Fact 19. New York, that wasn't, hello, St. Louis and LA. Here's the sleight of hand. Aside from a couple of quick bits near the Statue of Liberty, almost everything posing as Manhattan was shot in St. Louis and Los Angeles. Fire-scarred blocks and emptied districts in St. Louis gave Carpenter bombed-out avenues on a budget. The city let the crew lock streets, kill sections of lighting, and flood everything with haze after dark. Los Angeles handled interiors and signage. Think the Silver Cup vibe built on sound stages and backlots. Stitch those pieces with a few real New York establishing shots, and you get a seamless prison island that never really steps foot in Manhattan. Watch the corners. Brickwork mismatches, alleys too wide for Midtown, light pools that feel West Coast clean. The illusion holds because the film commits. Night after night, smoke after smoke. And if the locations were borrowed, the legacy kept spreading, straight into decades of remake rumors. Fact 20. The remake that keeps slipping through fingers. For years, the franchise teased a comeback. Then the trail cooled. Radio Silence, the Scream team, once developed a new escape that they stressed wouldn't be a straight remake. Then, in 2024, they stepped away and the project lost momentum. Since then, former writer-director candidate Lee Wannell has hinted the reboot isn't moving forward, citing murky rights and shifting priorities. Translation: development hell. Every few years, the property flares back to life with a new take, only to stall before cameras roll. Maybe that's fitting. Snake Plissken resists handcuffs, even studio ones. Until the legal knots loosen and a vision clears, the safest bet is the original two-film myth. One island, one eye patch, and a tone nobody's topped. If a new escape ever happens, it'll need guts, clarity, and a map no one's tried before. 40-plus years later, Escape from New York still feels dangerous because it was built that way. Cardboard cities, real rotor wash, garage fixes, and actors guarding character character over cheap swagger. Each weird fact isn't trivia. It's a clue to why the film endures. Lean craft, gallows humor, and a world that never explains, only insists. Whether a reboot ever lands doesn't matter. The original already escaped time. One island, one mission, one myth that keeps stalking our neon nightmares at night.